All right, so I was just taking some time to go through the um, main theses of Richard Dawkins and Francis Collins uh, over the compatibility or incompatibility of faith and science. Um, so the summary in the God delusion of Dawkins's argument, excuse me, in my own paraphrase. Number one, point number one, it is difficult to explain the apparent design of the world. Number two, we want to explain apparent design with actual design. Number three, we ought not to do that, since we thereby generate a bigger problem of the designer's designer. Number four, evolution explains apparent design in biology. Number five, we don't know how to explain apparent design outside biology yet. But number six, physicists are working on the problem and have made at least a bit of progress so far. And that's why there is almost certainly no God. From the chapter, Why There Almost Certainly Is No God, in the book The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. Alright, so in the first video of this series, this is the second video, part two. In the first video, in part one, we made it up to the sixth point. Physicists are working on the problem and have made a bit of progress so far. So the idea uh, is, I think here, that we don't really know for sure how to explain the apparent design, the fine-tuning of the physical constants and so on. Um, but there is this idea in cosmology uh, that some cosmologists espouse, which is the idea of a multiverse. Now, the multiverse hypothesis is that there are parallel worlds to our own universe, and each universe within the multiverse has various physical constants, various initial conditions, and so forth. And there are so many of them. Um, in the grand design, Stephen Hawking and Leonard Mlodinow say there's 10 to the 500 of these universes. But I'm not sure how they come up with that number. But at any rate, there's a lot of other universes parallel to our own, perhaps an infinite number. So each value, if we think of the fine tuning as a knob, a dial on a big supercomputer somewheres, uh, the the dial takes each value for one of the universes or another. So one universe has really strong gravity, the next has a little bit weaker, the next a little bit weaker still, and so on until we get to almost no gravity at all. Now, some of these universes, according to the hypothesis, are going to be fine-tuned according to the anthropic principle. So some will support intelligent life, some won't support life at all. Um, but the few that do support life, an intelligent life, perhaps humans will evolve and in these worlds and find themselves in a finely tuned world which has the appearance of design. So if we think of this turning of the dials from one universe to the next as a gene pool, as analogous to a gene pool in biology, then there's kind of a survival of the fittest. We evolve in the worlds that are most fit to our survival. And of course, we wouldn't evolve in a world that is uh, not life producing or life sustaining. Um, yeah, so that's the idea. We have, if we think of each world, each universe as analogous to a biological organism, um, then we have a Darwinian-like explanation, which is applied in this case not ultimately to the biological realm, but to physics, we have something that's analogous to Darwinian evolution. Only this is in the worlds as opposed to animals within the world. Um, well, there's a lot of points that I would like to make, or a lot of things I would like to say in response to the sixth point. Um, the first is that the multiverse hypothesis is just that, it's a hypothesis. Um, when we look around and we see what looks like order, what looks like the activity of an intelligent designer, but yet we have some ulterior motive for not accepting that there is a divine intelligent designer. So we assume that maybe there's other worlds, and that's how we can get around it with a kind of a loophole. Um, well, that seems very ad hoc to me. Um, the only reason that, so far as I'm aware, I mean, there are various articles that you'll see from time to time in popular science magazines, but it seems that the major motivation um, for positing these other worlds um, is to avoid the conclusion of the teleological argument for the existence of God. So we want God to not exist, and so we come up with any possible scenario to avoid that conclusion. But just because it's a possible alternative does not mean it's the actual alternative. It does not mean that it's true. Just because something is possible, it is not therefore true. Uh, some things are possible that aren't true. Unicorns, for example, could exist, but they do not in fact exist. So that's the first problem with the multiverse, uh, or with this sixth point, which is about the multiverse. It's ad hoc. It's just an hypothesis. It's not proven. We have here, I think, a argumentum ad ignorantium, an argument to ignorance. We don't know, but we'll assume uh, that that's what we want it to be. Um, we're instead of a God of the gaps, we have an atheism of the gaps. Um, so many problems there. Now, supposing that there is a multiverse, um, the idea here is that we're using a natural explanation to avoid the supernatural conclusion. Um, but the problem is there has to be something, some kind of um, intelligent agent, or at the very least some sort of reasonable scientific law which is turning the dials. And uh, the mere positing of the multiverse does not get rid of the problem of design, because the multiverse itself is uh, if well, I like to think of it like a machine. There's some kind of a machine uh, which transcends all of the individual universes, and it is a universe producing machine. Um, so there's something, I think, analogous to that in various models of a multiverse. Um, and the question is, the machine itself is generating these universes. It pops out our universe with its initial conditions and constants, and uh, the total mass of or the total quantity of energy, the mass of an electron, etc. All these different quantities and numbers and scientific laws even, um, are, are, are different for each universe. So the question is, how is the multiverse itself, the universe generating machine, that itself would have to be fine-tuned, it seems to me, to be able to uh, make different universes with different values. So um, it's taking the design, it may explain the design within our universe and within all the universes within the multiverse, but it does not explain the design of the universe generating machine or the laws that are analogous to a universe generating machine, or the meta laws, if you will. Um, yeah, so it's just it's and if we go back to point 3, uh, Dawkins himself says that if we posit God to explain the design in our universe, that generates a bigger problem of who designed the designer. Well, it seems to me that that problem would also apply in part 6. The designer in this case is not a divine intelligence, but rather a universe generating machine. But the question still remains: who designed this very complex machine uh, to be able to produce these various things? So all sorts of problems with this 6th point. But when we take all 6 points together, um, it really doesn't lead to the conclusion that God does not exist. Um, the most that we can say is that we have some reason to suppose that in the future science will have a natural explanation for physical design, which is similar to its explanation for biological design. But that has nothing to say whether God exists or not. Again, just as God could use evolution to create biological design, he could use this cosmic version of evolution uh, to as a tool to design the physical um, laws and constants and fundamental values. So uh, a natural explanation, I can't say this enough, a natural explanation does not preclude a supernatural explanation. When Jesus turned water into wine, uh, that was not totally independent of the laws of nature. Uh, Wine, when it rains, water is, through a complicated process, turned into wine. It's not an immediate thing, uh, but there is a chemical process as the rain goes through the soil. It comes up through the nutrients in the soil, come up through the plants into the grapes, and the grapes are converted into, they're crushed, and you get the juice from the grapes. Well, that juice in the grapes is coming from ultimately from rainwater, um, and nutrients in the soil. So uh, there's a natural explanation of that. Well, the same thing presumably was going on at the wedding in Cana of Galilee, only more quickly. So we could we could chart out the chemistry of it if if we had a lab and we went back in time and had our chemistry lab with us and analyze the process that was going on. Um, the creation of the world, uh, God is necessary to bring the universe into being out of nothing, but yet we do have a scientific understanding um, of at least close to that point. Uh, from the Planck time on, we can describe it with physical equations, equations of physics. Um, the parting of the Red Sea. It says a wind blew the water. Well, Wind blowing water happens all the time. It's natural.